compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law, I wish to state on May the 11th, 2018, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Central Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of the meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 on the Upper Township website. They hereby direct that this announcement made as part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask all to rise for the salute of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Coggins?
Here.
Mr. Corson?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
And Mayor Palumbo? All members are present.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from April 23rd, both the regular and closed session A and B minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any corrections, omissions, deletions that anyone's aware of? Hearing none. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Abstain.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried, 4 in favor, and Mr. Young abstains.
All right. Barbara, you got anything for us this evening?
I just have one thing to report this evening. I'd like to just report that tomorrow is the last day to register to vote. Upper Township Clerk's office will be open tomorrow evening from 4 to 7 p.m. We'll be accepting voter registrations at that time. If anyone needs to update their registration or anything, we'll be here till 7. And that's it. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
All right. Daniel.
Yes, we received an order from Superior Court since the last meeting. It's in the affordable housing matter, and the court approved our settlement. It's in its first phase of the approval, and it found that our settlement with Fair Share Housing Center was fair and reasonable and adequately protected the interest of low and moderate income residents. What that means now is that we now have to implement the items that are in that report. The planning board, I know, is working on our housing plan, and there will be some ordinances that will have to be amended slightly, as we discussed previously, with respect to that. And we have until, I believe it's August 1st to get that implemented. So we will.
We're hoping to have a workshop for the planning board to do some initial review of what has to be done. Actually, on Thursday, we'll probably have to. The planning board will be adopting the fair share plan element of the land use ordinance. Land use master plan element, and then would be forwarding that housing element and the fair share plan over the township committee, along with recommended ordinances for the township committee to look at introducing and adopting during the month of July, so that we can meet the deadlines of the court.
As we talked about before, there are some minor tweaking of our existing ordinances. It's essentially the same ordinances we've been operating under previously.
And so once we complete that to the satisfaction of the court, then that means that our number will be fixed at that point?
Our number's fixed. Actually, our number's fixed now. We just have to implement it. And our plan, our build-out plan, satisfies that number. It's primarily the town centers where that would occur. And we also, this was a given, it protects us against builder remedy suits for another 10 years.
Okay. Keep us abreast of where we're going with that planning board. What needs to be done.
And I do have a handful of matters for closed session.
Okay. Paul.
Thank you. I got a call today regarding the county has a miscellaneous paving project that they just awarded to South State Construction. They are going to be starting actually tonight or tomorrow over in Ocean City on 34th Street. But after that, they're going to be coming over to working on Roosevelt Boulevard between Route 9 and the Parkway. And then I don't know if they're going to continue through Upper Township and finish the other township roads. I know they're going to be working some on Dennisville, Petersburg Road, Mount Pleasant, Tuckahoe Road, and Marshall Avenue. I know those are at least 3 of the other roads.
So they're going to do night work on Roosevelt Boulevard.
Yes.
When was that again?
Possibly. They were anticipating trying to do it this week, but if you've seen the weather
Can
forecast,
you let Newman know?
I've already called
Okay.
Mr. Newman this morning, and I've talked to Jay Potter also. So, and I will, once I know firm dates, I'll put an email out to committee and the emergency services that are affected, just so that everybody knows what's going on. Especially since it's night work, so that it, you have to adjust your patterns. But from my understanding right now, there's no detours involved. It'll just be alternating one-way traffic operation, so the roads will always be open to traffic.
Okay.
And then the only other thing I had was just to remind the committee and the public, we're about a month and a half out from the Upper Township Farmers Market returning this year. The first date will be Sunday, June 24th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. out at Amanda's Field. So their organizers are busy away organizing and getting activities and vendors ready, and they're looking forward to another good season of the farmers market.
Well, you worked out location for that.
It'll be at Amanda's Field. Probably they're going to try to start working over where the pavilion and the playground is, and kind of set up in that area to be more family friendly, and have some of the food vendors out in that parking area, and the other vendors will be in and amongst the trees along the pavilions in that area.
Okay.
And we have toilet facilities and all that stuff?
Yes.
Perfect.
Bathrooms up there.
Yeah.
And have we coordinated that with baseball? Because I know they've been packed down there.
Looking at their schedule, they don't have anything on the schedule right now for Sundays once you hit into the summertime. So
I know we saw the Challenger down there, so that's, they'll be playing down there on Sundays, I think. Usually Sunday mornings is Challenger.
Are they going to be playing baseball there? Because traditionally they've been playing at the middle school. I don't know.
We'll find out. I don't think, right now, they'll probably stay at the middle school
Okay.
until we get the other T-ball fields up and running, so. All right, good.
That's all I had this evening. Thank you.
Barbara?
I just have one item. As you know, we participate in the South Jersey Power Co-op for electric. It's that time of the year to let the county know, or let the co-op know if we would like to participate again this year. It's a one-year contract. Since we've joined this in 2010, we've seen savings every year. The bill for the electric supply has gone down every year but one, actually. And this year I did confirm streetlights will be included as well. We've seen a savings with streetlights. It's a good savings for streetlights. So just need you're okay if you'd like to participate again this year in the co-op for electric supply.
I'll make that in the form of a motion. Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Okay. Committeeman Coggins?
I just wanted to bring people up to speed on one of the projects that the Economic Development Committee is currently working on. One of the things that they're trying to do is to get a little bit more of a widespread notification for Upper Township, to make more people aware of the fact that Upper Township is here and some of the resources that we have available to various people who are traveling through. Part of this project for the recognition was to come up with a 5x7 type, this size information card that would be distributed to the various rest stops throughout the Turnpike, the Parkway, various places that people would be traveling on their way towards the Jersey Shore. In doing so, they have come up with a design, they've agreed on the design, and currently the thing that they're trying to do is to go out and purchase these cards. Since they are not township employees, however, they cannot enter a purchase order. So with that, the process that's been set up is that any request for money coming from the Economic Development Advisory Committee would be put forth in front of Township Committee for Township Committee to decide on. The current request for getting these cards out, it would be 7,500 cards of this size and distributed to the various locations across the highways where they're putting these informational stands, is approximately $745. That's for 7,500 of the cards that would be actually distributed. So what I'd like to put forth to Township Committee is a request in the form of a motion to approve a spending for the Economic Development Committee in the amount of about $750 for the turnpike notification cards.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second. Second. Any discussion?
Before you do vote, the only thing I would say, John, is depending on the vendor, we'd have to make sure that they comply. We need a W-9 and possibly a BRC from them, whichever vendor they're choosing to use for this.
So we can make that part of the motion? Fine. I'll amend the motion to include that.
Okay.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Is that it?
That's all. That was it for this evening. Thank you.
All right. Committeeman Young.
Just a few things. I'd like to get approval for our fees, so we can get our fees set for 4th of July. This year, it will be July 4th again. It will begin at 4 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon and run roughly about 9 o'clock for most of the vendors. And we would like to have a $100 fee for any food vendor and a $25 fee for any non-food vendor. So we need to approve that through resolution. We were at 50 for the car show for our first time, and 15 for non-food.
Right.
This is going to be where we're not going to have as many vendors.
Just procedurally, when we've done this in the past, we've done it by resolution. So what we'll do is, if you do it tonight and give us direction, we'll have a resolution for the next meeting.
Yeah, so I'd make a motion that we approve this, so the board, so we can get this going and get our advertising out.
I'll second.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So far, we're working, pretty close with Barb's office and with Larry now on putting this together. And we had our first meeting, and I think it was really productive. And getting Larry on board to jump in with both feet, which he seems to have done. So, hopefully we'll have another meeting in another week or two. I'm looking at having 2 bands set up again. I'll have a regular rock and roll style band, and then I also have the South Jersey Men's Barbershop coming in to do like the last half hour during the flag salute and national anthem and all that. They're going to come up and do the national anthem for us. It's going to be all patriotic songs, just for something different.
So no national anthem of the slide guitar this year?
Not this year. I don't think it's coming up. Some of the voices might slide.
It was very entertaining. I thought you did a great job.
It was a blast.
I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
Just to try to make a change and, bring a little different flavor to what we've got going on out there. So, thank you for your approval on that. Went down the playground on Webster Avenue. We're making good headway on that. They started setting the 6x6s for the retaining walls today. They filled the balance of the lot in this week. So I think we'll be in good shape from Memorial Day weekend for the opening on that. And I believe they're supposed to start setting the fence on Wednesday, Paul.
Yes.
Speaking of fencing, where are we with the man next door?
They'll be doing his fence the day before ours.
Yeah, he's
Permit? He has his permit for it?
Yes.
Okay. I also, had someone ask me if there'd be any potential or anything they could do to get approvals for the Tuckahoe Beach, possibly to open up like a kayak canoe ramp. Since we don't utilize that beach at all, I'm not sure what it would take legally for us to do that. That's what the fee said.
Sorry.
Would we have to do a rebids for that?
If,
I'm sorry.
okay,
I didn't
no,
hear
no.
you.
Tuckahoe Beach.
So if,
To do what?
if we decided, well, I guess you would have to put it out to bid,
But
but,
we would have to.
but he's, Mr. Young is asking if it's feasible to have someone, you know, that would like to rent kayaks and canoes at the Tuckahoe Beach. Is that something that could be done, and has to be done?
I have to check. We don't usually designate that, and I don't know if there would be any safety issues on it.
Probably not something we're gonna get in place for this summer.
Again, I'm looking for down the road, especially, you know, Tuckahoe being,
I checked, I think it might be by ordinance where we're allowed to have kayaks and canoes and whatnot, so it may require an ordinance change as well.
It's just something-
I'd check. In fact, I was looking at another ordinance provision just when you,
I
that's why I
think
missed you.
it's worthwhile for us to look into doing something down there. We could also offer canoe tours, you know, we're in the scenic river, so possibly through the Cedar Swamp and all, and down, somebody could do some tours, and again, to generate some new things in that area.
Is that the same area we had the problem with, we had to put up the,
Yeah.
We put up barriers that, you know, that you can't, without, there's controlled access to get out,
it's controlled access?
for vehicles to get
And
out.
there's no real parking out there as well?
Oh, there's
Well, there
parking.
is.
No, there's plenty of
There's
parking.
ample parking.
Everything's there for this except for a porta potty. So,
I mean,
So,
it's
it can be
it's worthwhile
done,
to look into.
as long as
I mean,
the practical issues are resolved, it can be done. It'll just have to probably be an ordinance amendment.
and I haven't had
Are you
anybody
saying
come
for
to
the
me and
township to
ask-
rent them or?
No,
for-
no, no.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna rent it to a vendor to rent?
Yeah, it'd be a vendor come in and do it. We wouldn't, you know, all we'd be doing is leasing the beach.
That's a different animal.
Yeah.
That would have to be bid.
Yeah, that's what.
No one's come to me about doing it. It's just people have asked me if it would be a potential down the road that the township could pursue this and maybe.
It would be a concession or a bidding, and we'd have
It
to
would
go
be a
through public
concession.
purchasing and,
And we'd have to rent it or lease it.
Traditionally, I mean, I'm familiar with how they do them on the Egg Harbor River. And they utilize public landings, like right down the street from us, the fishing game boat ramp. They could put a canoe in, and traditionally you could go downstream with the water. And they do canoe all up in the Morton State Forest, and it's, somebody has a canoe place, they all meet there, they put them in a van, they take them up, they dump the canoes in, they pick them up at Point B. So there's really, in that kind of setting, there's no approval or anything you have to do, because they're accessing it through public beaches. If they were gonna set up a canoe stand there and all that, and you leave there, go grab and come back, that's a whole different animal.
I mean, that
if they're
beach
gonna
is
use our
closed.
land regularly, they're gonna have some kind of municipal approval. And if it's gonna be a vendor that we're gonna lease it to or whatever, you're gonna have to go through public purchasing.
Yeah, it's just for information, to see, you know, what the feeling is on it, if it's something we should, you know, possibly look into for down the road.
First step would be if there's any vendors out there, I mean, rather than do all the legwork to see.
Well, yeah, you know, if it was something that's feasible, I would like to see us go out and maybe advertise that we're looking for that.
I think, well, and again, I'm thinking if somebody was willing to do or wanted to do something like that, there's plenty of water around here they could do it.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I've taken eco tours in Florida and different places. I mean, I think it's something that we could at least pursue to see if there's interest in it.
There's a lot of kayak.
Curtis's point is, there's a lot of private access, and if it was a money-making endeavor, they
If
may.
somebody was-
The case in point on Mays Landing, what they do is there's quite a few places up there, campgrounds, that they have their own, you know, they have trailers and everything that they have the canoes on, they take them out at public access.
They dump
You know,
them off.
operate.
That's what I thought you were referring to
Public
first,
access.
yeah.
They drop in, they
Yeah.
do their eco trips.
That's relatively easy
But
to
again,
do.
that's different than what I'm envisioning here.
But I'm saying if somebody was willing to do something like that, there's nothing to preclude them from doing it now. If it, on the Tuckahoe River. And I
No,
mean,
there's not, just access to get your canoes in is the issue.
Well,
That
they can
beach is
act,
closed down.
they can utilize the beach. They only could not set up a stand and have the canoes stored on our beach and rent them off of our beach.
I mean,
I don't think
That's
I'd
just-
go leave
But I think that these things typically, they have a
Right.
trailer, and they trail
hold
the boats in for the day and trail them back out.
I mean, is it just something that John Sandbox could handle?
That's what I was going to lean towards, the Economic Development
Yeah.
Committee. I think would be a good thing for them to look at.
Yeah.
And it would also give us something up in this end which might appease some, some people. on
Is this
that.
what you're talking about, by where the boat ramp
Like the
is?
Watershed Association.
So, like Ocean City has it, the guy comes up and down with a truck and rents them and comes back and picks them up. I don't foresee anybody wanting to leave their canoes and kayaks out there overnight. There's no security. So I'm sure it would just be
The trailer.
each day, but that's all that I have.
Deputy Mayor Ball.
Okay, looks like we're getting a handle on the brush situation out there, so I'd like to thank the public for I'd like to thank the public for their patience, and sooner or later, we'll have it all cleared up. Other than that, that's it.
All right. Committeeman Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I have is next week, May 20th to the 26th, is National EMS Week. And everybody should recognize our EMSs. It started in 1974 under Gerald Ford, so everybody should take some time next week and thank the EMS personnel. That's all I have.
Okay, so I just have a couple questions. One, typically, when we get up to the Memorial Day weekend, and since we won't have a meeting before that, the VFW has traditionally done their tour, and now that unfortunately Mr. Adelizi has left this world, have we heard anything if they're going to do the same thing, or
I
somebody
haven't heard
following in his
anything.
footsteps?
I haven't heard anything from them. I can certainly reach out.
Yeah, would you, I know that Osprey Point is still planning on having something, but, in the 20 years or whatever that now 21 years, but it's the past 20 years, I've done the tour
Okay.
to the different cemeteries and stuff, and, he led the charge, so I'm not sure that anyone, decided to follow in his footsteps and take on that challenge, so. And then the other question is now that the asbestos has been mitigated from the old township hall, I think the Historical Society would like to know, what our next steps would be. So are we clear there with the asbestos?
We are clear with the asbestos. I know, I've had a call into Jim Rotala regarding, he was looking into applying for some grants that would match our consultant fees for planning improvements we want to do there. As soon as we know the status of that grant, I can report back to the Township Committee at the next meeting, and, if the grant looks favorable, we could maybe hold off. If not, the committee could look at the proposals that we had received previously and look at appointing a consultant to do the design work.
In the township, EMS rescue people and fire companies are actually doing a drill there next June 16th, which we're not going to be building or anything by then, so be a good opportunity for a big open building for them to do some, and it's not a live fire drill. But
So,
it's,
the Historical Society is in the process of applying for grants, right, county grants?
Well, they can't, they want to apply for the county grant. They can't apply for the county grant until we have the architect come up with a plan and a design so that we can come up with a better cost estimate of what the improvements are going to be, so that we know how much to request from the county for the renovation work.
I thought that there was a grant available that actually covered engineering and architectural costs, provided that you could get the location designated a historical spot.
That's one of the things that the committee authorized Jim Rotella to look at doing. So I've had some, I was trying to find out for today's meeting, but I wasn't able to.
We're just not there yet with Jim.
We kept missing each other on finding out the status of it. So I'll continue to keep trying to get the status update from Jim Rotella, and as soon as I know that.
So can we put that as a discussion item for the next meeting, just to see where we're at on this?
Paul, while we're on the county grants, anything on the septic and stuff for the Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, we've been going back and forth. There's been a bunch of emails back and forth between the county and the property owner in I guess the one contractor they had that wants to do the work isn't available for a month or something to do the work, so they're, they were trying
Bring a new
to,
system in, or are we gonna hook into our system?
they were gonna hook into our system, because otherwise, when they did the soil test, they were gonna have to put in a very large mounted system, larger, higher up than what we actually have out at our system.
Nice question. Are they gonna do the hookup? Or-
Yeah, they're gonna pay for it and do it, but their contractor can't start work for a while, and the landowner was trying to see if they could escrow the money, and the county is wary about escrowing the money to either to that contractor or to the township, because they wanna know that when they buy it, everything is done. So they've been just going back and forth with
We had no
emails.
estimated time frame when this is gonna come about.
I know that they had submitted the plan revision to the county. I think that they'd anticipated getting the county permit last week, end of last week. But I know that they were just waiting to get it, the scheduled contractor in there.
Okay.
All right, well, it sounds like we have completed the report from the governing body members, so would you like to move on, please, Barbara, for the resolutions?
Sure. Item number 1, honoring Karen Buchanan on the occasion of her retirement from Upper Township. Karen has been an employee in my office for some time, and just wanted to say that we'll certainly miss her and her dedication to our sports and recreation programs here in the township.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 2, authorizing the mayor to sign deed restrictions for the affordable rental property for the Osprey Cove project.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Is there anything we need to know about this?
Just that this is, we're signing off on it because as part of the affordable housing developments, any rental property, the township is a party or acknowledgement on the deed restriction, so that we're an enforcing agency as part of making sure that all the affordable controls are properly adhered to as part of the project. So it's just a pro forma, that we signing off on this deed restriction. The deed restriction is based on the model deed restriction that is established by the Department of Community Affairs, and it has been reviewed by Norm Briggs.
And these are the ones that are off-site?
These are off-site, and they were part of the project's housing plan to be there.
This one's going to be in Harriet Lane.
Harriet Lane, the former Coast Guard housing. Our ordinance allows that you can satisfy some or all of your affordable housing obligation off-site as long as it's within existing housing that exists. So you couldn't build new housing, but you could,
Rehab.
You could rehab, yes.
The only question I had was when I looked at the number of units that were specified, does that number of units, and I don't know off the top of my head what that number was, it looked to be about 8 to 10.
There's 9.
Does that satisfy the entire obligation
No.
for Osprey Cove?
No, 28.
They're
28
required,
is-
well, actually a little bit less because of the negotiation
Oh,
with
for
the
the
fair
rental.
share.
You get
So-
double thing for
So
rental.
I think they're obligated to have 20, I believe, under the 20 or 21. They already have 3 properties deed restrictions to the 9, that'll bring them up to 12. As far as they have, I think they have 348 units that have a certificate of occupancy, so they're not 48 units. So when they hit the 50 unit mark, they have to have 50% of their affordable housing, so they have to have 10. So with the 9 plus the existing 3,
That'll exceed their
it'll satisfy what they need to have for the number of units that they have, market units that they have in place.
For the record, just so you're aware, I had represented a family member of one of the principals in Osprey Cove, and so Norm Briggs handled the drafting of the deed restrictions as conflict attorney.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 3, authorizing the Township of Upper to enter into a contract with Cape Physicians Associates to provide pre-employment physical examination.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 4, confirming sale of certain land to wit, Block 424, Lot 47 to Clayton Industries.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 5, authorizing a 5-year extension to the lease agreement between the Township of Upper and the Historical Preservation Society of Upper Township for the land and premises known as the Friendship School, Block 587, Lot 1.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 6, authorizing a 5-year extension to the lease agreement between the Township of Upper and the Historical Preservation Society of Upper Township for the premises located at the Tuckahoe Railroad Station, 34 Mill Road, Tuckahoe, New Jersey.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 7, authorizing the Township of Upper to accept the State Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency Assistance Sub-Grant Award from the New Jersey State Police Office of Emergency Management.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 8, accepting the annual stormwater report and certification and authorizing the township engineer to electronically sign and submit it to the NJDEP pursuant to stormwater rules.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mayor, if I could
Everything's fine with this?
Everything is fine. We are in compliance with our permit requirements. However, this year, there is some new changes. The DEP modified the permit conditions, and so there are some new items that we've had to do. I mean, we've, if you look through the report, this is itemizing stuff we did last year, so it's stuff we've always been doing. It just totals. There was 219 miles of roadway that we swept during the year, collecting about 125 cubic yards of material off of the roadways as we swept, and just detailing the repairs and the inspections and maintenance to the stormwaters and basins that we do throughout the township. But some of the things that have changed as part of the new requirement is, first is there's mandatory training for both Township Committee and the Planning and Zoning Board members. So I'll be forwarding everyone a link to do, it's about a 45-minute online training that we're required for everyone to take to maintain our compliance with our permit. If we don't, we're in violation of our permit. The other thing that we have to do is we have to go out and map and inspect private stormwater basins and facilities, meaning on all our commercial properties. I've already been inspecting them as a normal course just to make sure that they're operating, function properly. And if they're not, I usually send a letter to the property owner that, hey, you need to do some maintenance. But now, not only do we have to continue that inspection process, but now we actually have to map it. So I have to go out with a GPS unit. There's actually an app on the cell phone that I can use to collect that data and include that in our stormwater mapping for the entire township. So some of those are some of the additional things, requirements that we have to start doing this year for 2018 stormwater permit compliance.
Nothing's ever easy.
Okay.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 9, granting the appeal of the street opening moratorium for Block 561, Lot 32.04, Block 561, 32.07, and Block 838, Lot 2.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Okay.
Let's call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 10, authorizing the extension of the outfall pipe on Caledonia Drive,
I thought
Upper
this was
Township.
one that we're tabling.
No, I did review it and made some changes to it, so you do have corrected versions of the original resolution. We weren't sure whether I was going to be able to get to it before it got on the agenda, but it got on the agenda a little quickly. Just so you know what the changes are that were done, we added both property owners to the resolution, and we also added as conditions the requirement that they provide indemnification and insurance to the township.
So we're doing the work, is that?
No, they're going to do the work.
Okay.
They'll post a performance bond to cover the cost of the work and make sure that it's done satisfactorily. And they'll notify me when they get ready to do the work. I'll go out and inspect the work to make sure it's completed in accordance with the township standards. And once it's done, then we can release their performance bond.
And it gets added to item 8.
It's actually, after seeing the house go in there and all that and looking at it, I'm amazed it took them so long to get to this point. They should have, I would have wanted this thing filled in a long time ago if it was me.
Okay. Can we have a motion?
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Number 11, appointing the 2018 season beach patrol or boat ramp attendants.
So this was.
Jumping ahead.
Move the resolution. These are the vote rates.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 12, appointing Ronald Rain and Eric Kajara as part-time seasonal beach sweepers for the Upper Township Public Works Department.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Now, appointing the additional 2018 season beach patrol personnel.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes, and I would add that I think we plan on having the beach open at least Saturday, Sunday, and Monday on Memorial Day weekend, and then it will begin to ramp up as we get into June. So I guess from the past 3 resolutions, you can tell summer's not far away, because we hired beach sweepers, the lifeguards, and the boat ramp attendants, so it's a good thing.
Item number 14, authorizing the award of a contract with Alternative Micrographics for document management software and document scanning services.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 15, refund EMS ambulance billing overpayments to WPS TRICARE.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 16, authorizing building and electrical permit fee refunds to Solar City for 75 Tyler Road in Upper Township.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 17, appointing Anthony Parcio as truck driver to the Upper Township Department of Public Works.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 18, under correspondence, Atlantic County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund memorandum regarding the court order and written opinion in the West Wildwood versus New Jersey Mel for rents versus West Wildwood matter.
Perhaps a little explanation, just generally is in order. The JIF and Mel asked us to put this on our agenda. They sent us a correspondence and a copy of the judicial order and decision in West Wildwood matter that involved an employment termination and a whistleblower suit. The short version of this is that the Atlantic County Municipal JIF withdrew their coverage. The decision of the new set of governing body members came in and replaced the set that had terminated the employee. The employee had a whistleblower suit against the municipality at the same time. The new set of governing body members that were elected and came in, what they ended up doing was reinstating the employee, and JIF said, you can't do that because it impacts our insurance coverage, or you shouldn't do that. It's a violation of our contract with you, and we will withdraw coverage. And the whistleblower suit, once it went through the courts, I believe it was $1.6 million, perhaps a little bit more, and JIF didn't cover it, and they're explaining to you the circumstances as to why they didn't cover it, just so that you're aware of it. We're well aware of those provisions. The Township Committee knows that I review those with you and explain that we can't take any actions adverse to the coverages and the defenses that JIF provides.
So if they had followed the recommendations, and I'm not trying to throw West Wild under the bus, but if they had followed the recommendations of JIF and not rehired the person until the suit had been settled, they wouldn't be in this situation?
They would have coverage if they had followed the recommendations of JIF. And JIF's contract clearly states, if you don't, we have the right, if you take action contrary to what the best interests of the defense is, then your coverage is in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened here.
So they're on the hook for the $1.6 million.
Yes, it's a very difficult financial situation for
But
West Wild.
let me ask, so I'm not trying to make this, more convoluted, but if that whistleblower had never lost their employment, then it would be a different scenario, right? Because there's no retaliation if there's merit to it.
Well, it depends. Depends upon what the claims are. I'm not familiar with the specifics of the case, but it depends. JIF does cover current claims that there were claims. A whistleblower suit is a claim against the municipality, so JIF and Mel might cover that even if they hadn't lost. But this whistleblower suit was filed in retaliation of the termination, or at least that was the allegation.
Okay.
And then they were reinstated, so it weakened the case significantly and left JIF exposed.
Yeah, so if you don't follow JIF's guidance, you may not have.
You may jeopardize your insurance.
Even though the same governing body didn't terminate the hire that ones.
Not the same governing body, they were
Yeah.
different members. The individuals had changed. They apparently, according to the literature and the judge's decision, it's clear that allies of the fired employee were elected. And that's probably saying it mildly. One of her closest friends and personal relationship was elected. And they were two camps. So, and just, it's really just asking you to put it on a public agenda to discuss it, to understand why they denied the coverage.
They don't
Probably
see-
because of the bad press that
They
has
don't
come
want
out.
to see us
They don't see other people make the same
to
mistake.
have the same mistake.
I would understand what their decision-making process was, why they did what they did.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? All right, we'll take it as an FYI.
Okay. Under new business, item number 19, we have the bid results for the re-roofing of the municipal building project.
Paul?
As you saw from the results, I mean, we had numerous bidders took out the plans. There were about 9 bidders that actually 8 bidders that showed up to the pre-construction meeting. And we had several bidders respond to the bids. The total bids for bids 1 and 2 were all over the engineer's estimate and what we had budgeted for this.
The recommendation is to tweak the specs to get it within our budget, which would mean a rebid.
Correct. If we look at item number 2, some sheeting repair, we feel that we can safely adjust some of that numbers to get us within our budgeted dollar amount, to adjust those quantities.
What did you put for a sheet?
5,000 square feet, because they're, not knowing until, you kind of really peel the roof off, because we have had issues in spot areas of the roof, and when they've been up there doing those repairs, some of the workmanship in some areas was not so good, especially over this section of the roof. And because it's not easily accessible because of the cathedral ceiling nature of the roof, we were trying to err on the side of being more conservative than to make sure we had enough in the quantity. Didn't want to have to come back to Township Committee after we had the roof off and awarded a contract to come back to committee and say, we need more with the change order. But since we were over the dollar amount, we felt it would be more prudent to rebid the contract with a little tighter quantity and get it within our budget amount.
I mean, the sheeting that, well, I don't know, we know it's bad, or?
Well, the problem is you have a cathedral here, you can't inspect it properly. You go over the other side where you have an attic, you can see it from the other side.
There's quite a variance though, in the bids here. Oh,
There are.
What would it cost us to have somebody come up and get up there and walk the roof and give us an inspection?
Part of what, in here, the access is severely limited because the space between the roof and the cathedral here is,
Well, I'm not talking about get into the annular space, I'm talking about actually get up on the roof.
And see.
Well, if you're a contractor, John, bidding on the job, you should get up on the roof and inspect it.
Yeah.
and that's one reason why I had a pre-construction meeting available to have the contractors.
They might want.
Did anybody walk it?
Nobody wants.
I don't know if anybody, I know,
Isn't it part of the thing when you walk the roof to see what kind of tiles are loose?
Anybody ask for access to the building to check it?
yes.
You walk it to feel sponginess.
Right.
And these are probably all 2 foot on the center on the roof trusses.
But some of the,
For that sponginess in between your rafters.
but even some of that is, when we did some of the repairs, some of the issues, or even some of the nailing procedures were not as stringently adhered to during the original construction. So, you may feel something, after we strip it off, we may start seeing things that you might not visually see.
So your recommendation is to rebid this?
Yes. Because when you look at the base bids are well within what our budget amount is. It's just the sheeting repair
Well, at least for one contract.
for one contractor. But that's all we need is one contractor. The lowest apparent bidder on here, his base bid is within the budget.
Budgetary guidelines, okay.
So is that, if we have a bidder that is within,
He was a late bid.
No.
No.
No, we had a bid, but it does not include any of the sheathing repair. When you put the sheathing repair in there, it knocks it
But
over
that's
our
what
budget.
I didn't understand, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So all the bids are over when you include everything, and what
okay.
Paul would do.
Because the one bid
Specify a
for the
little
single
better
shingle replacement
specs,
is
so that we get better
right?
bids the next time, and we're competitively
The
below the
lowest bidder
estimate.
didn't follow all the specs, didn't include.
Hoping he bids again.
We're stripping the roof and removing it.
Yes.
They're providing dumpsters, or we do?
They're providing everything. Removal.
And if the plywood, like underneath, needs repair, they take care of that too?
That's what part of the sheet,
That's
that's
the
the sheething repair is.
I mean, not for nothing, we might be better off getting our own couple 30-yard dumpsters here, and us have put the roof in, and have them, and us pay the bill on the dumpsters.
Nah, just.
I think it's
do the whole-
Okay.
Yeah, let them do the whole package.
Okay, yeah,
It's
you're
not-
The
right.
whole package.
All right, so You have to go through the whole process again?
Yes, you would reject all bids and ask,
And authorized to rebid.
authorize a rebid with revised specs.
So I'd like to make a motion that we reject all the bids for the re-roofing in the municipal building and authorize the engineer to put out a revised set of specifications.
Second that.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 20, Greater Tuckahoe Area Merchants Association requests the use of the Upper Township Community Center on July 11th, 2018 for a scholarship awards presentation. And they do have all their documents in order, and they will be reminded about the parking situation. Mr. Barr made a motion?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 21, the ALS Association Greater Philadelphia Chapter requests the use of Upper Township roads for their annual Ride to Defeat ALS bike ride on June 16th, 2018.
Move the resolution.
Second?
Requirements met?
All the requirements are met. They have contracted with the New Jersey State Police to assist with the ride as well.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 22, the Historical Preservation Society of Upper Township requests the use of the Gandy Farm for their annual Strawberry Festival on May 19th, 2018, with a rain date of May 20th, 2018.
Move the resolution.
Second.
You're
not gonna have Jersey
strawberries.
Mr. Barr?
Yeah, they're not growing, right?
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Only if there's Jersey
Mr. Corson?
strawberry.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young? Mayor Palumbo? Motion is carried.
Probably coming from Plant City, Florida.
Item 23, under discussion, draft ordinance to amend Chapter 13 of the Code of Upper Township to permit wireless communication facilities in the public right-of-ways.
Again, perhaps some discussion on this is warranted, or an explanation before you discuss. We do not have an ordinance which directs this at the current time. We are allowed to regulate our right-of-ways. We're not allowed to prohibit this. What these are, if you look in your materials, they're the cell antennas that go on top of existing poles, and there's a narrow cabinet that 8 feet up, I believe, on average, that would go to the pole.
This is where they would put Stratford?
In Strathmere right
This
now.
isn't even just unique to us.
It's to everybody, and it really is to help the barrier islands when there's a massive influx of people with cell phones. It's to provide booster signals. A number of the barrier islands have it already. What I'm proposing with this ordinance, and I've been discussing it with Verizon's council, is that we have an ordinance that provides a framework and addresses the concerns that we may have. For example, it only can go on existing poles. There is this aesthetic component. The zoning officer can approve it if it complies with the requirements in this ordinance. However, if they do not, then it gets kicked to the township engineer to see if it's a major or minor deviation. And if it's a minor deviation, he would have the authority to approve it. If it's a major deviation, it would go to the zoning board.
Any adverse effects from this? I mean, other towns
Well,
experience it?
depending upon where you cited it. For example, one of the initial proposal sites was across the street, was actually on, what road was it?
Neptune.
Neptune, which is right in the line of sight to the folks that have beachfront houses. So in discussing it with Verizon, Paul went out and met with them, and they said, we can put it on another pole and get the same coverage. So that's the type of thing that we're doing. They would have to sign, in accordance with the ordinance, a master license agreement. There's also co-location requirement at 400 feet. If there's another one within 400 feet, you can't, but you don't want 5 of these on one corner.
Okay.
All right? If you've driven down some of the other towns, you've seen them. The older ones are much more bulky and obtrusive than the newer ones. The newer ones you really have to look for them, I think, to notice that there are cell antennas on the top of the pole. And Paul, defer to him on the specifics in terms of the requirements, because he reviewed them. And I think we really just designed it for the minimal size antenna and box, if I'm not correct.
And the only chance, I mean, I don't see these coming on the mainland, do we?
Yes, I do.
It probably would help to have.
Yes. If you have a coverage problem, and it's a lot easier just to put this on top of one of the poles.
You could, I mean, there's some, depending on, Seville has some bad coverage right now. Obviously, that they have approval to put a new cell tower at, behind the Acme. They're hoping that'll clear up. But I could see, especially along Corson Tavern Road with the number of campgrounds that are along, between Upper Township and Dennis Township, right in that short stretch.
I'm not familiar.
You're not? Okay. That, you could see that, or even over to an Ocean View a little further down where, the other large campground is off of Route 9 there in Ocean View. That, in those areas, I think that you could potentially see along that corridor where you have an influx of that same type of seasonal
I know AT&T is real slow in the summer. I'm not an AT&T guy, but
It requires indemnification and bonding and all types of neat things. So, if you have no objections and no other questions, we'd like to put this on the agenda for introduction. Obviously, it would be published and have a second reading.
So do we need a motion to move forward with the draft?
Well, I don't think you need a motion, as long as you don't have any other questions or concerns. We'll put it on the agenda for you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Item number 24, draft ordinance amending revised general ordinance, Chapter 10, Building and Housing, and Chapter 11, Property Maintenance of the Code of Upper Township.
Okay, on this one, what we have here is a revision of our property maintenance and removal of dangerous structures ordinance. It also has a component in it on piling control and installation. Our existing ordinances for property maintenance were woefully inadequate in certain areas, and the demolition of unsafe structures, while that is controlled by the state construction code, there are statutory provisions which allow municipalities to adopt their own ordinances, and if you do so within the statutory framework, the cost of the demolition can be certified as a tax lien, similar to a tax lien against the property. We have had instances where this is a problem, and it's been my opinion that we should update these ordinances so that we take advantage of all the statutory mechanisms, not just the state construction code, but also that tax lien option. Because what would happen if you use the state construction code and the code official properly determines that it's an unsafe structure and it has to be demolished, we would have to then go after in court for demolition costs. So that's one of the primary reasons to have this changed. And also, we do have on occasion dilapidated buildings where we need to cite people. Maybe they don't need to be torn down, but the building is in ill repair. The code that we were using was outdated and frankly needed to be updated, and that's what this does. This has been reviewed by litigation counsel, it's been reviewed by the prosecutor, it's been reviewed by Paul, our code official, and Shelley, and this is the result of a lot of work over the last 6 months, I'd say.
this actually gives us, if there's a dilapidated structure, it gives us the ability to go in and secure the building, board it up, whatever we have to do, we can actually put a lien on it.
Yes, it gives us an arsenal that we don't have right now.
Yeah.
We do have the ability under state law to do things if it's a dangerous situation, but this lets us do it with more mechanisms to collect the costs.
Good. Sounds like a good.
And the piling is very similar to Ocean City. Hobie would be familiar with it. We did have some members of the public come in. It's primarily Strathmere, maybe some of the Harbor Road properties. I'm not sure if any of those are on pilings. But it's the notice to your neighbors and requirements. Paul can again speak to those.
But unlike Ocean City, where in some of the other short towns where there's really a prohibition during the summer, we still allow it during the summer season, but we just restrict, we just put better controls on time, saying, you're not starting at 6 a.m., you're kind of waiting until 8 a.m. and you can't work on Sunday, the weekend. So it's kind of.
Is it address holidays?
And no work on the major holidays. So it's not a prohibition, but it puts some more reasonable controls to work during normal work hours, as opposed to, because we don't have, that is one thing our ordinance does not have, is for construction activities, time limits of construction. So this allows, at least for the heaviest of construction, some controls on the timing, and does, as Dan said, provide notice requirements that the neighbors at least will have some notice of, hey, I'm going to take my fine china off the counter, so that in case my house does get shook around, I'm prepared for it.
Okay.
And we would like to have these introduced, particularly the property maintenance portion of it. But if you don't have an objection, we would introduce them at the next meeting and get rolling on it.
Yes. A quick
Come
question
springtime, we get a lot of complaints about this stuff.
on the property maintenance portion of it. One of the things that was discussed was commercial trailers or commercial vans that would be parked on property in a residential area. Did I understand correctly in that ordinance that we would permit one?
Not, when you say commercial, not tractor trailer.
When I talk about commercial, I talk about the definition of commercial being, as Title 40 looks at it, which would be anything capable of hauling loads in excess of 26,000 pounds.
All right.
Which would be
That's not what this ordinance says. This ordinance is, as I understand the provisions that Paul reviewed with the zoning officer, it essentially is the same language that we have now. The commercial tractor trailer type storage.
Correct.
Is not in this one. That is going to be worked on in the land use ordinance. And the thought now is that if you have a residential trailer that's, or a tractor trailer that's used for residential purposes, existing and allowed to stay, you just can't bring any new ones in without getting variance relief or complying. If you're commercial, you have to comply with your site plan. But that's not in this ordinance. That's not covered in this ordinance.
John, where you were seeing where it says one,
Right.
If you're looking under, it's 11-1.14, you're only allowed one unregistered vehicle or trailer, and that's what's currently in the ordinance.
Okay, got it. When you're so what you're referring to then would be any vehicle or trailer, for example, a boat trailer or a jet ski trailer or something that would not be property.
That's not registered.
That's not registered.
Got it.
Because some people would have old cars, and they say, well, I'm working on it. Well, okay, you're working on one, but once you get past one, that's not really appropriate in a residential zone.
Right.
Okay?
And
it also talks about the maintenance of them if they're deteriorated.
If we're going to grandfather these trailers, if you have one, you can keep it. What if it's put in, it's not meeting the setbacks and everything for that area?
Well, that's not this ordinance again. This is a property maintenance ordinance. This is only where deteriorated type things. That will be in the land use code, the one they're working on at the planning board.
But we did clarify in here that if you did have one of those types of storage containers or tractor trailer bodies that, or, an RV that's, if it's starting to get in a state of disrepair, that's where this ordinance, we
Okay.
tightened that up and said, hey, if you've got one that's, whether it's conforming or non-conforming, it has to be.
If it's falling apart, it's got to go.
Yes.
Right.
So this is where,
That's what this
like we
does.
said,
That's what this-
dilapidated, disrepair.
That's what this
So we
does.
have teeth to go, okay.
Yes.
Yes. And the other one will deal with whether or not you're permitted to have whatever element it is, and there will be a grandfathering provision as long as it's consistent with the use in that zone. For example, you can't grandfather a storage facility that's used for commercial purposes when they never got a use variance. We can't grandfather that.
Yeah.
But if somebody's using it as extra storage for their house and it's been there for 50 years and it's not deteriorated and there's
It should have to meet the setbacks as a shed.
No, well,
Well, if it's been there for 50 years, we didn't have setbacks in the zoning 50
Well, I
years
don't
ago.
think you're gonna have a metal trailer sitting out there for.
But if you put a new one in, that's a different situation.
and we're not, and
And commercial, if you don't, we're talking about residential now. With commercial, you're gonna have to come in, if it's not on your site plan, regardless, it's not grandfathered, you gotta come in and get your site plan changed.
and regarding.
Which is setbacks and everything, so hope.
Right, and in a residential property, setbacks would only occur as long as it's in the rear side or rear yard. There is no, I can park, you can take your boat trailer or an RV and park it right up along your side property. There's no
Yeah, I'm not concerned with
setbacks.
something that's got wheels. I'm concerned if somebody takes a storage trailer, plops it down in the side yard, 5 feet off the property line, and it doesn't have
You're talking about commercial or residential?
residential.
Well, there's no,
And if,
we're not regular.
And that ordinance is still at the planning board.
That's at the planning board.
We're working on that. We're only talking about something that's dilapidated right now.
but again, this is just discussion. You can chew on it, we'll introduce it at the next meeting. If there's an issue or whatever, we can tweak it and fix it. I would like to get the demolition property maintenance, because there's a few high-profile properties that I'm sure some of the neighbors would like to see go away.
Sounds like a plan. Dan.
Payment of bills?
You want someone to make a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Mr. Bart?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
There's a number of reports from the municipal departments, animal control, clerk's office, construction, EMS, finance office, MUA report, and tax collector. All of these reports will be available upon request tomorrow morning at the clerk's office. I'll make a motion to accept these reports.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
At this time, we've reached the public portion of the meeing. However, I'm not sure that we have anyone that is willing to.
Come on, Jay.
But if there is, now's the time to do so. All right, we have a very quiet meeting this evening. So we'll close the public comment portion, and I'll turn to Committeeman Coggins for a motion to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are personnel, contract negotiation on the lease renewal of Block 247, Lot 21, and Block 383, Lot 1. Also, Cape May County Fleet Maintenance. Potential litigation for 30 Rivendell Road. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when the formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Drive safely.